future of the Republican Party, MAGA or moderation? I'm Alex Zdan. Welcome to Inside the Headlines, Country at a Crossroads, a special limited series where we discuss the biggest issues facing the nation. President Donald John Trump, like no other, has ridden astride the Republican Party for 10 years, the dominant force in conservative politics. His nationalist, socially conservative, and sometimes economically liberal version of what he brings to the country has won elections and galvanized the Republican Party. He upended the electoral map twice, and he did it again in 2024. In 2024, every state in the union shifted somewhat to the right, and not just those ruby red bastions that you'd expect, like Alabama or Mississippi. New Jersey, of all places, blue New Jersey, moved to the right, and President Trump came within just 6 points of carrying this blue state. The New York City suburbs and even some of the outer boroughs also moved towards Trump, and of course the president won the crucial swing state of Pennsylvania and the election. Fast forward 1 year later, and the permanent realignment that some saw shifted. Independent voters who came out in New Jersey in 2018 as part of a blue wave that elected Mikey Sherrill to Congress came out and elected her governor. In Virginia, Abigail Spanberger took over from Republican Glenn Youngkin. And of course, as you may have heard, New York City had a mayoral race, and even though the Republican was not a big factor in that, Democratic socialist Zoran Mamdani is now mayor of New York City. What are we to make of all this? Where are the two parties, specifically the grand old party, going in this new environment? All things come to an end. President Trump is constitutionally ineligible to run for re-election in 2028. Vice President J.D. Vance is waiting in the wings. Secretary of State Marco Rubio might run, but this is not just about horse race politics at the national level. It's about the local level, the state level, and yes, the policy level. What does the Republican Party want to bring its constituents? Donald Trump is in charge of the Republican Party because he's popular, epically popular among Republican voters. Who or what can fill his shoes, or can no one? Let's meet our panel. Tony Perry is the Republican mayor of Middletown, New Jersey. Matt Rooney is a conservative blogger for the website Save Jersey. And Alan Steinberg wasn't, and then is again a Republican, a never-Trumper who has the Dynamic Political Centrism podcast. Thank you all for being here. I'm throwing it out to all you guys. So what lessons have we learned from 2025 in New Jersey and in Virginia? Which way is the Republican Party going? Is it MAGA all the way, or is it more moderation? What do you guys think?
I think the Republican Party needs a big tent. If they try to purge MAGA, it's a terrible mistake. I am a Reaganite more than anything else, and Ronald Reagan was the ultimate big tent Republican. I think, though, you may have a little bit, I think it's going to be a very heated conflict between former Bush people who, Karl Rove is already sort of a consigliere to that faction, and against MAGA types. But with the exit of Trump, I don't think MAGA will be so, I don't want to use the word potent, but he is a leader and a charismatic person. I don't think Vance approaches that level. So can't predict what's going to happen in 2028, except that there will be conflict. I think it's important, though. I think in New Jersey we may have some success because Mikey Sherrill gave the worst inaugural address I ever heard.
She's terrible, but can you do MAGA without Trump?
We'll find out.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't prove a negative. And Donald Trump has dominated not just Republican politics, but our politics now, going back to 2015 when he rode down that golden escalator. I think, more than one thing could be true, though, right? Like, yes, you don't want to chase MAGA away. That'd be a major mistake for the Republican Party. At the same time, I think that Donald Trump has built a big tent Republican Party, as evidenced by the results in 2024. I mean, that's the best that any Republican presidential candidate has done in the Garden State since '92, right? Which at this point is more or less ancient history. So as Republicans in New Jersey kind of figure out, Alex, which way to move going forward, it's going to be a mistake to assume that since President Trump is leaving office rather, that now a new era has begun and we need to forget the lessons of the past few years. They need to emphasize what the president's done right to build the coalition that he did in 2024 and, of course, improve upon that. Who can do it? Again, we're going to find out soon.
Yeah, I agree with the last comment with Matt's.
I mean, Tony, at the local level, though, how much of what you deal with every day is national politics?
Well, the good thing about being the mayor of a large municipality here in New Jersey is that, right, streets don't have party affiliations. When you fill a pothole, it doesn't matter whether you're Democrat or Republican, it's got to be repaved. When roads need to be cleared for a big snowstorm, it doesn't matter Democrat or Republican. But what does matter, and to Alan and Matt's point, the JD Marco relationship is going to be interesting as you go through the midterms and see who starts positioning each other. Back in 2016, I remember being in New Hampshire on the ground there with several other people from New Jersey and seeing the Marco dynamic with Donald Trump and to see that renaissance basically that they have had with one another. You can see when they're talking at public events, you see that dynamic between the two of them, because Donald Trump really, while he has focused on domestic issues, in this 47 term, he has really focused on the international issues, talking about the conflicts that occurred and took place under President Biden. You saw that lack of international leadership, and now all of a sudden you see President Trump taking a step forward when it comes to Israel, when it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to Russia, when it comes to battling back on China and defending Taiwan, when it comes to his true focus on the Arctic and the North Atlantic. You know, everybody wants to talk about Greenland. What we have to focus on, and what the tip that I think that perhaps the president and the State Department need to start putting out there is, this is all about Russia, and this is all about battling back on Russia and preventing Russia from really seizing that northern Arctic region and focusing on the national defense.
Yeah, and this is also about bringing Make America Again international. We'll have much more to talk about when we come back. Stay with us. Inside the Headlines, Country at a Crossroads continues right after this. Welcome back to Inside the Headlines, Country at a Crossroads. We're discussing the future of the Republican Party in the age and after the age of Trump. We all just lived through a governor's race in New Jersey. What are the lessons that we're going to draw from that? Would a MAGA candidate have done better than Jack Ciattarelli did?
I don't think so, because one of the reasons that, and I'm not trying to trash MAGA by saying this, the big reason that Ciattarelli lost was the unpopularity of Trump. Had Kamala Harris, excuse the expression, because I've been furious the last few days about the anti-Semitism she showed against Shapiro. Had Kamala Harris won in 2024, Jack Ciattarelli would have won the governorship.
Just because of the pendulum swing?
No, because whoever's president was going to be unpopular. It's not just Trump. If she had been elected, she would have been a very unpopular president. And I think Jack would have won, and the anti-Trump factor wouldn't have been there. However, I'll say one thing about Trump that is relevant to New Jersey. He did one thing that I can never take away from him, even though I oppose him on almost everything. He was the best president and I'm very pro-Israel, he was the best presidential friend Israel has ever had.
Well, that didn't really factor in the New Jersey governor's race.
Well, it did.
Did you guys think
not the governorship, it favored him?
MAGA candidate would have done better in New Jersey, or no?
Well, you just brought up the key word, pendulum.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I understand what Alan's trying to say, but we live in a pendulumocracy, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. New Jersey has these off-cycle elections that are different from the federal cycles, and we tend to go in the complete opposite direction. Is it contrarian? Yes.
Yeah, it is.
We should care about the quality of the candidates and their ideas. But part of the reason it was so close in 2021 and Jack Ciattarelli almost won, despite the fact that at the time there was a 1 million Democrat statewide registration advantage, is because Joe Biden was the president at the time.
Absolutely.
So I don't think it's not specific to President Trump. It's unfortunately just the way that New Jersey tends to vote in these cycles following a presidential race.
And to that point, though, you talk about the future of the Republican Party, and whether it's here in New Jersey, in Virginia, or in any other state in between. Well, you have to take advantage of now, right? We have a new governor in New Jersey. There's a new governor in Virginia, both Democrats. Now is the time. The next 3.5 years is the time to start building how you are going to counter that. So when you do have your candidate after the primary and you do have a gubernatorial candidate, that candidate is set up for success. We cannot sit on our hands and just hope that it's better the next time. We have to start getting out and talking about the issues. And whether it's here on this set or whether it's in local town halls, wherever, coffee shops across the state, country, we have to start talking about the issues. Far too often I see the number one thing here in New Jersey that we talk about is overdevelopment and the cost of living, right?
Mhm.
That is the number one thing we talk about. And what frustrates me and what I think the Republican Party has to do better is they can't just sit away for the next 3.5 years and not talk about these issues because they're so critically important. And whether it's in Virginia or, like I said, all across the country, California and their energy prices, if Republicans aren't willing to take the time over the course of that span to really focus in and say how we would fix it and how these problems are impacting your community, how they're making your life harder to raise a family, to live, to buy that first home, then we're going to lose them once again. In 2021, when Jack ran for governor of New Jersey and he loses by 80,000 votes, well, there were 50,000 vote by mail ballots that were sitting on people's kitchen counters that never came in.
Mhm.
Think about that. Think about the swing that has. Take the momentum like that and really grow a party. And until New Jersey stops trying to eat their young, and that's the same case in Virginia, same case in other states, we have to stop trying to destroy the people that are in power and work together as a collaboration to say, hey, let's work together to address overdevelopment and how we're going to pin the Democrats down on this issue. Let's talk about property taxes. Let's think outside the box.
You bring up something really interesting too, Tony, is you've been on the campaign trail, you've won successful elections. When you're out there, how much of it is I'm making a case to you, the voter, and how much of it is the voter making the case to you about what he or she wants? Because there's got to be a give and take there.
Well, but that's the difference between whether or not you want to be a every other week mayor or whether or not you want to be a 24/7 mayor. And elected officials far too often, whether they're traveling to the big gold dome in Trenton, or whether they're a county commissioner, or whether they're an elected mayor or town council member, township committee member, it doesn't stop. It's a 24-hour-a-day job. And just because it's Christmas or it's this holiday or you don't have time, I'm a part-time mayor, right? So but it doesn't stop because because I hit my 20 hours that week.
Yeah.
It is an all day, every day action. And so taking the issues to the voters is so critically important. Meeting them rather not in town halls, but meeting them at their homes, going to where they are is so important. And if the Republican Party can get up off its butt and say, these are the issues that are impacting you. Don't be mad about them when they impact your block, your neighborhood, your children. Be mad at them today.
Mm-hmm.
So that in 3.5 years, when we do have a candidate for governor, we can have the issues and the solutions to those problems that we can realistically say to the voters, hey, you might be a moderate Democrat, but can you believe the way the school funding formula works here? Hey, you might be a moderate independent in Virginia. You're tired of paying high gas prices in California. Here's the solutions to these problems. This is how we're going to fix them. These are the easy things, the easy checklist that every voter can understand. Because at the end of the day, it is our job to make someone's life just a little bit easier. And if we can do that as elected officials and as a party, and we can articulate that, that's the recipe for success.
Tony just gave an excellent message, which is why I consider him one of the leading future gubernatorial prospects. Okay, I hope we go on.
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
Start the rumors.
Here we go.
I haven't jinxed them. Okay, but here's what Tony's going to need, or any gubernatorial prospect's going to need: money. And that the fact that the Democrats.
That's true in any state.
Well, the Republicans used to have a big monetary edge. I'll give an example. And even though I served under Christy Whitman, I'm not a Christy Whitman Republican.
But Christy Whitman had some serious money.
She had serious money. She had 3 huge fundraisers when she started the campaign in '93. She had Lou Eisenberg raising money off of Wall Street. She had Cliff Sobel raising money off.
But
of
isn't
Main
that
Street.
world gone now?
No, Wall Street, absolutely not.
They like Democrats now.
Well,
I was just going to say, I mean,
it still can be a big Republican source.
the wealthy white people that used to populate those Republican fundraisers are now trying to hit ICE officers with their cars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's been a cultural
And they're
change.
hosting
But then
fundraisers for
one of the
progressives.
reasons why New Jersey has become more challenging for Republicans statewide, because what do you do when people are wealthy enough that they can vote their values. And sometimes those values are wacky.
Yeah,
Right?
and sometimes if they've got a college education, they're even more wacky. Guys, we're going to have to leave it there for now, but stay tuned. We've got much more to come. Inside the Headlines, Country at Crossroads continues after this. Welcome back to Inside the Headlines, Country at a Crossroads, for this discussion on the future of the Republican Party. Alan, I called you a never-Trumper before. You were in and out of the Republican Party. Who'd you vote for in 2024?
In 2024, I voted for Kamala Harris, and as I said, I would have voted for Trump if I had known about the anti-Semitism.
In fighting against the anti-Semitism or the anti-Semitism?
No. Because what she displayed against Josh Shapiro, which has now become the rage in all the stories, was outrageous.
I mean, Matt,
Did
come
you
on.
really not know about that, though?
No.
I mean, the
No.
DNC booed Israel.
I
Anti-Semitism.
understand that, but
Is he a
Biden
Democrat?
Biden was pretty good on Israel.
Was he?
Yes, he was. He wasn't as good as Trump, but he was pretty good.
What did he do to make Israel safer?
He was very good in the dome, in the Iron Dome, which is the biggest defense need Israel has. And he also was very he never gave in to Hamas.
One of the many things
his record,
President
I will
Democrat
defend him
Party
on
is
that.
now led by gentlemen like Mamdani.
I was the most
Biden
anti-Mamdani
legacy.
person you can find. If you read my articles on
Then you
Mamdani,
shouldn't have voted for Biden.
no, Mamdani was not a candidate in 19. Mamdani was not on the scene in 2024.
We can't
Mamdani
think ignorance
wasn't
on
there.
the other end of who
No,
we
Mamdani
clearly
wasn't
saw
there in
taking over the Democratic
2024.
Party.
That was not foreseeable. Look, I know New York politics. People are still getting over the shock.
And I'm
I
all the
have
way down in
friends.
South Jersey, and I could see it
But
coming.
not, well, I did not see.
I'm a Philly sports fan.
I'm not as visionary as you are, perhaps, but I did not see that coming.
Possible,
Okay.
Alan.
But I did not see that coming. But nobody has been after Mamdani. I've called him a crypto Nazi. I've called him everything under the sun, and I have condemned any Jews who voted for him. Not condemned them personally, but the act of voting for him. But I think that what the Republicans will need to win is a large coalition. My candidate, you're not going to like this, would be Mike Pence. Mike Pence, well, MAGA hates him. But what he did against, the one thing I will hold against Trump forevermore was January 6, 2021. I think that was disgraceful. And when he ordered, and I'll tell you, one Republican I always liked, because I thought he got a bad rap, was Dan Quayle. When Dan Quayle told Mike Pence, no, you must certify the election, that was an act of patriotism. That was an act of courage. I will always be highly critical of Trump for what happened.
Pence could probably spell potato. I'll give him that much.
Well, no, Dan Quayle was very underrated. I
Couldn't have rated him more lowly.
What?
You couldn't have rated him more lowly than they already did.
The Democrats did a great media job of ridiculing him.
And they always do. And they always
I
will.
got to tell you something. When he ran against Birch Bayh, I got a call from a prominent Democrat in Washington that said, you're going to win this election. This guy Quayle's impressive. And when Bush picked Quayle, the immediate reaction was very good, in fact, among Democrats. I had calls from Democrats saying, you got a winner running for vice president. But then the media, and I've always suspected Jim Baker on this.
And don't give too few points to Lloyd Benson for body slamming him in the debate with the "You're no Jack Kennedy." That was great.
I've got an article coming out about Mikey's inaugural saying, you're no Jack Kennedy, because he gave the greatest inaugural speech ever.
She's no Joe Biden. She's no Barack Obama. She's no Abigail Spanberger either.
I heartily concur. But I think that the Pence would be, as long as he could somehow, I don't know if the saying would be more acceptable to MAGA, as long as the heat against him would decrease a little bit, he could get independent voters too. And that's going to be the key to winning the election in 2028.
I could not disagree more strongly.
I didn't expect you to agree.
Because I know.
Hold on.
I know. But independent voters are not looking for what you think they are. I'm an attorney. I know you don't hold that against me.
I'm an attorney also.
Right. That's why I know. I've yet to have somebody ever walk into my office and say, you know what? I want you to be as reasonable as possible to the people that are trying to take away my money, my children, harm my business. They want an advocate. That's why fundamentally Christie was popular in 2009, because he was a bully that was bullying the bullies here in New Jersey. It's part of the reason why Trump has earned the loyalty of the Republican movement. You don't get that from Mike Pence. You don't get that from most
I think
Republicans
you do
in New
get it from
Jersey
Mike
and
Pence.
elsewhere. Well, when is he going to evidence it?
He's evidencing it right now. He is doing excellent media appearances.
Well, and he ended up
He
being
will have
wrong.
Paul Rove, who is the best consultant I've ever known.
Given what we've
will be
learned
his
in
consultant.
Minnesota and elsewhere, Donald Trump was on to something about 2020. We need people to stand.
Not in
We
2021.
need people to stand up for us, and that's what President Trump has consistently done. Lincoln said when they criticized Grant, "I can't spare this man."
Disputing a fair election is not patriotism.
What's fair about 2020 with what we've now learned?
I
in
said
Minnesota?
2021. That election, the 2020 election was fair. You may not have liked the outcome, but the riot of 2021, January 6th, was disgraceful. And I will always hold that against MAGA. I served in our nation's Navy. I've served in terms of public life. I've had a center-right position. That day was a disgrace. And Mike Pence deserves an award for being courageous enough to disobey Trump's unlawful order.
He got one from the Kennedy family. He did get one.
Yes, he did. Well,
You're holding the actions of a handful of rioters against every person
wasn't
who
a
believes
handful.
MAGA in this country.
It wasn't a
There are
handful.
millions of people
I
who
know
believe in
millions
MAGA
of
in this
people
country.
were
Millions of people were not there.
millions of people were supportive of that, and that was wrong.
You think support is the same thing as rioting?
Well, the rioters, they should have been condemning the riot. They should have been repudiating it. It was disgraceful. And Trump should have repudiated that. And I give Pence credit for being patriotic. And I give Dan Quayle credit for advising him to repudiate the riot and to not certify the election. I believe in a democratic process, even when my candidate loses. I salute Al Gore in the year when my president, whom I served, George Bush, and I'm proud to have served him, particularly what he did with AIDS on the international level.
PEPFAR.
You know, PEPFAR, one of the greatest presidential initiatives ever. George Bush met with Al Gore after the election. Al Gore conceded that it was over. I think what Trump did was a disgrace. It was contemptible. You can laugh all you want, but I think most Americans agree with him.
Did we forget what Al Gore put the country through for weeks?
I didn't support Al Gore.
Following the election. A Democrat
I
has
was
never
slated to work
accepted
on
an
that
election
recount.
that they did not win.
Well, Donald Trump, repudiated an election that he lost.
But this is actually perfect because this is exactly what I think the Republican Party shouldn't be doing right now. We are focused on 2021. We're focused on we're focused on 2000.
On the past.
The Republican Party has to move past what is in the past and has to move forward. And we have to start talking to these residents. And I think Matt makes an excellent point. Matt talks about fighters, right? He talks about Chris Christie here in the state of New Jersey. He talks about Donald Trump being a fighter. And I think that's exactly what there are prominent Democratic mayors in this state that came to me after the last election and said, I voted for Donald Trump because I couldn't vote for Kamala Harris.
But Jack Ciattarelli was a fighter and he lost.
But to your point, is that
Because of
because
Trump.
Donald Trump is in the White House? But it goes back to that pendulum politics. And I'm not saying if we get a Democratic president in 2028, does that mean that we get a Republican governor in 2029? Maybe we do.
Maybe it works that way. That's what I'm saying.
But that person still has to be a fighter. That person still has to go out.
I know no better fighter than Jack Ciattarelli, and he lost and he was a great fighter for
Jack
independence.
is a close personal friend of mine, and
I worked
he's a
like
great
crazy
man,
for him.
and he was a great candidate. He found himself in two situations that I just didn't work out.
And that were not of his making.
True.
It wasn't of his making, but
Well,
he lost because of the Trump factor.
Jack's messaging, and look, we all love Jack, right? We're establishing that. His messaging was off. He spent a lot of time talking about how he's a Jersey guy in a state that has fundamentally changed. Part of the reason why Donald Trump got so close in 2024 is not because he did so well with quote unquote Jersey guys. He won over a lot of people that haven't been in this state very long because they were all attracted to that America First.
I made the point about the Jewish vote that Trump got.
And there's
which I
one
didn't vote
word that
for.
none of you have brought up though yet.
Jersey.
The word that describes Donald Trump that unfortunately did not describe Jack Ciattarelli, which is outsider. A lot of people, especially in the Republican Party, want an outsider, someone who has not been part of the governmental ecosystem that they believe has hurt them.
But that
over the
wasn't
course of their
for
career.
Jack in 2021.
2021 is not the same as 2020.
I know that.
It's a
but-
different
but
climate.
It was
then.
the Trump factor that killed him.
2025 is the Trump factor is one thing. I'm talking about an outsider candidate as the role model going forward because at least in New Jersey and at least in Virginia, for a period of time, the Republican Party is going to be in opposition. You need to be an opposition party, an anti-establishment party, an anti-corruption party fighting against the excesses of the Democrats, because what do we know? They will go too far.
And a party that's for something, right? We cannot just sit there and for the next 4 years with Mikey Sherrill or Abigail Spanberger say, we're against them. You have to come out and actually say what you are for, how you're going to fix things. And that's why in places like Middletown, in places that do have Republicans and that Republicans win big, is because you go out and you don't say, I'll take my 60% victory and walk away. No, you have to continue. You have to fight for every percentage. And that's why in Middletown and other places in Monmouth County, you're outpacing the Republican candidates in those.
Absolutely. Being
You're
for
also
something.
needing
You're being
something else. You're going to need a Republican who can attract a good percentage of the African American vote and of the Hispanic vote. Jack did that in 2021. Because of the Trump factor, he was unable to do that in 2025. That is critical. That's why Tom Kean was the most popular governor we ever had.
And that also was a long time ago. But we're looking to the future,
Not that long.
and I can't think of a better panel to do it with. Mayor Tony Perry, Matt Rooney, Alan Steinberg, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. As for you, this has been Inside the Headlines Country at Crossroads. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.